Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of the Publisher Lab. I'm Tyler Bishop and joined alongside me, as you will come to expect, Whitney Wright. Welcome back.
It's good to be back. It's good to have another episode rolling. I'm excited about what we're talking about. We were just discussing how all the publishers are interested in it. Everybody's talking about it. So let's just jump right in. It's ChatGPT.
Yeah, I asked you what we had on the agenda today because normally I'll take a look at it before we get on the podcast, and today I just didn't have a chance, and I asked you beforehand, what's on the agenda, and you go, it's pretty much just ChatGPT. It's what everybody's talking about.
I was looking up stuff to talk about, and I looked at all these different websites and news websites, and there was an article for ChatGPT about on every single website. So I was like, it's just time to talk about it. It's like what everybody is talking about. It's what everybody wants to know about.
Yeah.
So Reuters, and we were actually just discussing this in our Slack channel that it's estimated ChatGPT is estimated to have reached 100 million monthly active users in January in just 2 months after their launch, making it the fastest growing consumer application in history.
Yeah, and that's ahead of Instagram. That's
ahead of TikTok.
Yeah, ahead of Vine. You can think of these things that have popped up and been viral over the years. Like I remember Instagram, it was such a big deal that Facebook bought them for billions.
Yeah.
So early in their lifespan, and it makes them look smart. This is, orders of magnitude, more popular faster.
Yeah. I mean, they average 13 million unique visitors have used ChatGPT in January. And like you were saying, it took TikTok 9 months after launch to reach 100 million users, and Instagram 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So it's everybody's talking about it. Everybody wants to use it. There are some concerns, though. Some people are concerned about it.
What are people concerned about?
AI taking over everything. It's not a new concept.
Yeah.
So Amaz's article, some people are worried about SEO because of ChatGPT and natural language processing apps. And, are people going to start using NLP assistants instead of search engines? When you use NLPs to write stuff, it's kind of more broad. It doesn't give very specific examples. And so this article is saying that it's useful for getting subtopics and headings and for meta descriptions maybe, but it's not at the point where it's going to give you a general article and not something really specific.
Yeah, and I think if you think about, we can go back to the start of your premise because there's a lot to kind of unpack with it.
Yeah.
I would say before we get into the specifics of the SEO aspects and how to think of it, the first thing that you mentioned are people going to start using natural language processing or AI, ChatGPT clones or iterations to basically replace what we use search engines for today. And I've said before, I don't imagine a future in 10 years where we load a static list of websites from a search engine as being the ideal way to get answers to questions. Mm-hmm. But I also think, I've watched everybody extrapolate out now and predict, the future with this. And that's the part where actually, as somebody that likes to spend a lot of time dreaming about what's going to be, the next version of something else. I look at this and I go, most of the predictions that are assuming that it's going to just replace a search engine, you're not thinking about it properly because it's a search engine. If it gets replaced, Google's not going to get replaced by something that's basically just doing what they do better. Mm-hmm. It's going to get replaced by something that solves the problem better. And I don't know that that's, how we think of a search engine today. So I think it's going to be hard to extrapolate out exactly what this looks like in the next 5-10 years right now.
Yeah, I agree. So speaking of Google, they've reportedly started testing a new desktop search page design that integrates chat technology. So it's possible that a search engine redesign would include results from Google AI and push organic search results down farther. So, it could be similar how it takes an organic search result and pulls the answer to whatever question you're asking the search engine, but it would be AI generated. And so people are concerned about, possible losing rankings, and people are just taking the AI generated response and not really looking into anything else.
Yeah, I think it's a genuine concern that people should have, and I think for publishers, you should definitely be concerned about this from the standpoint of about 6 months ago, Google spent I think it was a couple $1 million, but it might have only just been a couple 100,000 because they bought this data pipe in quotes from Wikipedia. So Wikipedia only sells this to like a very small handful of partners. And you think about all the information that's in there, and if you have this deal with Wikipedia, basically everything that's in Wikipedia, they can then sort of like metadata up, repiece, parse, like however that you would want to. And so Wikipedia answers a lot of questions, but not everything. I think it's like one of the top 50 largest sources of internet traffic in the world. And a lot of that comes from Google already. But the thing to think about with this is if Google can't just steal your content and put it into Knowledge Graph, some content just doesn't even fit for something like that. But even if they could, they can't. That's illegal. They won't let you run ads on websites where you've scraped somebody else's content. However, if they are lawfully gaining access to information and repurposing inside of the search engine, I think that's fair to say. Like they become more of a competitor at some point. And publishers have always had to ask themselves the question of how much do I feed the beast without letting it eat me? And that balance could change. So I think people just need to be, with your sort of like iterative hats on, know that this is a risk, but also know that like people want content, and not everything can be produced from a chatbot or inside of a knowledge graph. And, we've said for years, like make sure that you do have content that isn't, is it going to rain today? Because it's likely that going to a website is not the best way to get that information anyways.
Right. I think it kind of harkens back to, natural language processing. It's more general. Mm-hmm. And so, people that are Googling, I think the example could be like, what's the weather today? And like, it's going to pull up something really easy. That's like something very broad, and just like, there's an answer. But if you want something more in depth, you're going to have to look at a website, and that's what people offer over these AI-generated like chatbots and content. Is when people want more in-depth answers, which I think a lot of times people are researching and looking stuff up. You're going to have to go to organic search for that.
Well, a lot of people in SEO, like they've been concerned about how do I increase my EAT. I'm like, I won't dive into my feelings around sort of like the myth and lore that's around it that I don't think is based in any form of reality, but that expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, if that's something you've been investing a lot of time in recently, like that's a good thing, because if you think about the types of information that are proprietary or like, like the best quality of a certain genre. So like we use internally, Porter 5 Forces is like sort of like a guiding business philosophy. So I think the guy's name is Michael. I'm drawing a blank, but anyways, the author himself is sort of like goes around to speaking engagements around all this kind of stuff. He also has a site where he talks about business principles, highlights new case studies and examples and things like this. That form of content is not something that a chatbot nor Google can just kind of like piece together from other parts of the internet. This is like unique quality information about business that is, it's being produced by him. He's taking in information, he's producing it. And I doubt that we have AI anytime soon that can basically be Porter 5 Forces is the name of the thing. Yeah, Michael Porter. So I doubt that there's an AI right now that can be as human as Michael Porter. So for that type of content, which I assume most publishers have been trying to increase the amount of, I think that you're still in a pretty safe area of the business.
Yeah, I agree. So lastly, we have an article by Search Engine Journal. So people are concerned with chatbot and AI-generated content stealing basically your content. So it has to learn from somewhere. Yeah. So, there's lots of ways. It's large language models is what it's called, and it's training these large language models. It pulls from multiple sources like Wikipedia or government court records, and there's a popular data set of web content called open web text, and it consists of URLs found on Reddit posts, which had at least 3 upvotes. So
it's good.
Yeah, right, exactly. At least the general public thinks it's good. So there's something called common crawl data that comes from a bot that crawls the entire internet. It's called CCBot, and it obeys the robots.txt TXT protocol. So it is possible to block CCBot if you don't want your website data making it into another
But
data
realistically,
set.
it's in a data set now if it's not.
Well, that's what they're saying is there's ways to opt out of AI using your content, but there's no way to remove
Yeah.
your data from something that's already been.
Yeah, it's too little too late.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a concern about that, and I think there's concerns with AI generated images, stealing art basically from people,
Yeah.
and it's got to learn from somewhere.
Yeah, and I think I might have mentioned this in the last podcast, but there'll be a court case at some point where a judge will need to rule in favor of basically somebody alleging that the AI, whoever's creating this AI content generator, is using their works of art. And there's one right now. I think it's a stock image library against somebody, and whether it's this one or another one, eventually they're going to make these developers that are building these tools to open up the box and basically see, like, is what's in there essentially allowing, like, this machine learning to take pieces of this stuff, which would be basically like a copyrighted piece of material or something like that, and then just basically like kind of plagiarizing it, if you will, or is it using it as inspiration? And at some point, we're going to have a law that if the machine is actually plagiarizing to some degree, then I think it's fair to say, like, yeah, you can't do that. But if it's not, and it's just being inspired by, in quotes, it's like, what does that look like? And then do we need new laws that govern basically machines versus humans, or do they have to obey the same laws as humans? And this is not something that's going to be like this year. This is like years and years of legal challenges that probably are Supreme Court level decisions that get made at some point. But the other thing that I thought was really interesting, because you brought up the data set. So I learned this week in talking to a close friend of mine that actually worked at Boston Scientific for a long time, and then also worked on autonomous driving at Tesla. And I was like, what do you make of the ChatGPT stuff? I was like, it seems like it's really expanded a lot. And I was like, I played with the GPT-3 before they launched the ChatGPT stuff, and it was really good. But I was like, having it in a chatbot really makes it better. He's like, well, it's not just ChatGPT-3. It's everything they've done since then. I was like, oh, do they just cram way more data in? He said, no, actually, it's kind of the opposite. He's like, if you look at the data sets they have different ones that are in there, but like they have these different models like Da Vinci and things like that are supposed to be better at different things. And he's like, their data models didn't change. The thing that changed was they basically hired a warehouse full of people, and they said, we need you to rate the responses that you get from the machine and rank it based on, is it what a person would expect, like in terms of like how it's communicated? Is the information accurate? And is that how you would basically explain the information to a person? And so they were basically like, we need to humanize this. And so all their time and energy, like it's the least sophisticated, like the least data driven is like, they brought subjectivity into it. So it's, like, I don't know. I love situations like that where it's like everybody's focused on the wrong problem and the answer to solving it seems to be like right in front of your face. And this is one of those. And I think that this kind of breakthrough probably speaks to where we'll see the development of a lot of these things in the future, which is you already see it now a little bit. And I hate to tell you, but Apple and Google, those really friendly big tech companies that we've all known to grow and love, Apple, I just got a new iPhone, and it's like wanting me to go through all these emergency protocol things. Like, you should turn this on. So if you're in a high-speed car accident, Apple can call 911. And it's like, how necessary is that? And then also the satellite thing where it's like Apple has, a threat in some capacity with internet service providers and cellular service providers. So if they could just, have satellites that you got, service from directly, that'd be pretty great. Well, now they have this, like, make sure your phone can get satellite connection. Just test it here for emergency purposes. And it's like, are Apple maybe testing to see if, like, what their coverage is, like how accurate some of the data is. So they're using you to train, different things. And then Google, every time you fill in a CAPTCHA and it's asking you to show it pictures of a stoplight, how do you think it trained its image recognition model? So I think, people are going to be used as sort of like trainers for machines in a lot of different capacities. And that doesn't have to be bad, but it is something to think about with this, is that the AI, what it lacks right now is the ability to be even somewhat human and have a human experience. And because of that, that's where the opportunity really lies in terms of both being a publisher and even being a technology creator right now. Is I think there's going to be a lot of people that focus on really difficult things when there's stuff that, like you're going to be able to find immediate applications for with this kind of technology.
Yeah. So what would you say to publishers? We were kind of discussing before we started, publishers that are worried. They're like, I need to sell my site now. Like what would you say to those people about ChatGPT and where this is all going?
It's a tool. So I liken it a lot to an iPhone. I think it's that level of technology where it'll be that disruptive from the standpoint of like it's going to change a lot of things. But in the same way that a cell phone didn't change, like the fundamental underlying principle of like digital content and open web, anybody can access information all across the world. It just gives us a new mechanism, like it's just a new tool. A cell phone changed the way we access information digitally. It made it better. And I think that that's where I look at something like this, where I'm like, I see endless opportunities with it, but not just as a developer, but as a content creator. I mean, this thing can, think about you've got an article on your website that's missing a chart, right? You don't maybe want to make charts. It's hard to do. It's complicated. Hey, ChatGPT, turn this information into a chart. Bam, your article just got better. Hey, is my information on this article accurate? Expert trustworthiness, authoritativeness. You save all this time and energy on research. You can have it edit for you. My economy of words is not the greatest. It's is pretty good. So it can basically be like a staff of experienced writers, editors, graphic designers, things like that you can have at your disposal that, theoretically is going to make you a lot better of a publisher. And you can focus less time on a lot of the things that I would say are the least fun about creating content. And then on top of that, I also think that there'll be ways that you can sort of incorporate it into helping you be a little bit more like data-driven or disciplined in the way that you run your business, where, maybe you have writer's block, or maybe you, like want to find some way to redesign something on your website instead of, piddling away your time trying to focus on these things that are not going to drive revenue. Like you can use the chatbot to find these subjects for you, to code a new sidebar or whatever it is. So yeah, I think we're actually probably just on the cusp of we're in that phase now where everybody's predicting the most like far out and futuristic ideas, and also in just total dread that it's going to end life as they know it. But change is always hard, and it's always like concerning. But at the same time, would you rather not have an iPhone? Would you rather not have 5G fast internet? I think it's just another innovation that ultimately we're going to all come to say like, yeah, we're not going to wish we didn't have it.
Right. Yeah. I think it's something that we need to consider. Like, how can it work for you, not against you?
Yeah.
Focusing on the positive of it rather than worrying about the negative. It's not the apocalypse. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, I would definitely caution anyone on thinking that it is taking the job of creating content, because it's not going to anytime soon. What's more than that? It's like you think about entertainment content, for example, right? So like pretty much all forms of, or not all, but most forms of video that are in a TikTok, right? Or YouTube, it's like, who's that made for? It's made for people. Like to make entertaining content, like what makes a piece of content entertaining? I watched this weird video the other day, and it's like nothing happens for like a minute and a half. And then a guy jumps out of a bedroom closet and like, goes to scare his kid, which is what you think is going to happen. But whenever he jumps out, the kid's actually not there, and it's a dog, and the dog barks at him, and he gets afraid. And it's silly, and it's like way too long, but it was amusing to me, and it kept my attention the whole time. I can't imagine, without being a human, being able to understand like why I watched that entire thing and why I found it somewhat entertaining.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that you look at something like video too and just go, yeah, I think if you think that this is something that's going to take all content creator jobs, I think the opposite. I think it's going to maybe create more.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else that you have on the topic?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's a really fun subject to think about. But yeah, I also think that I would caution anyone on being so sure of where this goes next, because in my experience with something that truly is like a major innovation like this, it's that almost everybody's wrong at first because, like,
What do you have to go off of?
yeah, exactly. It's like, the way that people use it and the way that, things like cascade from here, it's like almost always stuff like this comes out, like, feels like it comes out of nowhere. And yeah, I mean, with the 100 million active users or whatever in the fastest time ever, certainly looks the part. So yeah, and it's been fun to kind of restart the podcast around this time too,
Yeah.
because it gives us a lot to talk about and sort of this lens, and it'll be fun to cover the topic over the next year or so and see how it kind of evolves. But we appreciate everybody that's given us feedback and everybody that's joined back up as a listener of the show. Just early in numbers, it looks like we've, a lot of the audience feels like we never left. So thanks everyone for the positive feedback, and it's good to be back. Whitney, anything else?
No, just make sure you like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We also have this on YouTube if you would prefer to watch. And I think that's it for this episode of the Publisher Lab.
All right, thanks everyone. We will catch you next time on the Publisher Lab.